A European leader and ally of Donald Trump's, and I mean full-blown Trumper, has sounded the alarm by describing the president's state of mind as dangerous, and I have all the details for you next. Hello, I'm Dan, and welcome to Occupy Democrats. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button to get all of our videos covering the chaotic and concerning slide that we are witnessing from Trump. Before we hear from that European leader, let's first look at another state of mind indicator that is trending today. HuffPost reveals it with a headline that reads, Trump's completely deranged new spin on a tearful tale leaves critics agape. President Donald Trump on Tuesday brought back what used to be a staple of his speeches, people who spontaneously burst into tears in his presence. For years, Trump has told stories about supporters weeping when they see him. I have steel people that every time they see me, they start to cry. He told Fox News host Maria Bartiromo in 2024, they hugged me, they said you saved our industry. The year prior, Trump claimed Republican Governor Ron DeSantis had burst into tears as he sought an endorsement. He was dead, he was leaving the race. He came over and he begged me for an endorsement, Trump said at the time. He said, if you endorse me, I'll win. And there were tears coming down from his eyes. Trump has also spun several variations of the tearful tale, but they usually feature tough guys who had never cried before. I don't think he cried in his life, and I don't think he cried when he was a baby, Trump said in 2019, as he spoke of a man begging him to cut regulations. He was crying. He said, sir, you give me back my life and my property. In 2018, it was a strong, tough guy, and he was crying, according to Trump. He said, Mr. President, thank you for saving America, Trump recounted. I'm telling you, that man, he was tough. I don't think he cried when he was a baby. Trump has also spoken of a 2017 event with farmers and ranchers weeping behind him, but the event was captured on video and did not show any obvious tears. Trump's critics responded to the newest story with their eyes rolling rather than tears coming out of them. Spiro's Ghost sets up the clip with another completely deranged made-up Sir story with fictional crying people. This is way beyond dementia.
I just left a great group of people from Iowa, and half of them were crying as they talked to me. I don't think they were crying because I'm doing a bad job. You know, in theory, you'd cry if you do a bad. They would cry because I've done a good job. Sir, they said, sir, you've brought our country back. Crying. One woman was fantastic. She grabbed me and she put her head right there, and her tears are pouring all over my beautiful suit. I figured I'd get it. And I checked it out, and there was a lot of makeup all over. I said, what the hell am I going to do? I got to get myself in trouble. No, but she was crying, and I said, don't cry. Be happy. Be happy.
And now for our featured story, which is much more concerning because Trump's diminished capacity and rage affects the lives and liberties of people worldwide. I discovered a political article that details a European leader's leaked words in a post by Tom Joseph that says, Trump's frontotemporal dementia deterioration and related psychosis is causing worldwide alarm. We look ridiculous as a nation by allowing him to remain in the White House. His complicit doctors are covering up for him and must be held accountable. European leader spoke of shock at Trump's state of mind after Mar-a-Lago meeting. Slovakia's prime minister told EU leaders at a summit last week that a meeting with Donald Trump left him shocked by the U.S. president's state of mind. 5 European diplomats briefed on the conversation said. Robert Fico, one of the few EU leaders to frequently support Trump's stance on Europe's weaknesses, was concerned about the U.S. president's psychological state, 2 of the diplomats said. Fico used the word dangerous to describe how the U.S. president came across during their face-to-face meeting at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida on January 17, according to 2 of the diplomats. The conversation between Fico and his European counterparts took place in Brussels on January 22nd, on the sidelines of an emergency EU summit arranged to discuss transatlantic relations in the wake of Trump's threats to seize Greenland. Leaders used that gathering to try to calm tensions after the U.S. president walked back his threat to slap tariffs on some European countries over the issue a day earlier. The Slovak prime minister made his remarks in a separate informal huddle between some leaders and chief EU officials, rather than during the formal roundtable talks, the diplomats said. While none of the diplomats who spoke to Politico were present, individual leaders briefed them separately on the content of the conversation shortly after it. All the diplomats were granted anonymity by Politico to allow them to discuss the confidential exchanges between leaders. They come from 4 different EU governments. The 5th is a senior EU official. All of them said they didn't know the details of what Trump had said to Fico that had triggered his reaction. Fico's comments are especially pertinent because he's among Europe's most pro-Trump politicians, touting his access to the U.S. president in a Facebook video after the Mar-a-Lago meeting and voicing support for Washington's approach to the Russia-Ukraine war. A year ago, Fico spoke at the Conservative Political Action Conference and told Americans, "Your president is doing Europe a great service." Fico seemed to be traumatized by his encounter with Trump. One of the European diplomats said, Fico characterized Trump as being out of his mind, a diplomat said, using the words briefed to them by their leader who was directly involved in the conversation. Fico denies making those remarks, but the article continues. Even without Fico's remarks, Europe's leaders and senior officials are increasingly concerned about the U.S. president's unpredictability, according to a sixth EU diplomat, who was not briefed directly by a leader on last week's conversation. Fears about the U.S. president's health are rapidly becoming a more converse topic at all levels, said an EU official who is involved in political discussions in Brussels and between capitals. Trump, 79, has repeatedly and forcefully denied that he suffers from any condition affecting his cognition, telling New York Magazine this week that he doesn't suffer from Alzheimer's disease. Those are just the highlights. For the full story, visit Politico.com. The signs of Donald Trump's decline are there, but I'm just a guy who talks into a camera, so don't believe me. But do believe this credentialed master of mental acuity, who I will give the final word.
Dr. John Gartner, our psychologist, author, and founder of Duty to Warn.
Is when people have dementia, they'll often get derailed, right? And start talking about some tangential topic that will then remind them of some other tangential topic. And then they'll just start free associating to it. And you saw this. He started the press conference, okay, he brought some props with him, okay? So for the first 12 and a half minutes, I counted it, okay? He displayed over 40 wanted posters. Okay. And he just riffed on them in this racist way. Yeah, murder. See, probably a Somalian. You know, those Somalians are all bad. They don't even have a country. Look at this one. Oh, yeah. International murder. He meant attempted murder. And it's like this crazy thing where he's just showing pictures. It's like show and tell in kindergarten at some level. He's just like showing these pictures and then throwing the wanted posters on the floor. It's just a bizarre spectacle. And then after that, he says, we have more accomplishments than any other. Let me show you. Look at all these pages. Look at all these words. Right. All these accomplishments. And he throws it on the floor. I mean, it's like a Saturday Night Live takeoff, except it's actually not. It's reality has become farce. But the last thing I wanted to say about the press conference, also those paraphrases like strong-armed rape, and he says, "I love Hispanic." That's not a thing, right? You can't say I love Hispanic. It's like saying I love black, I love Jew. There has to be an article there.
More than one.
There's just so many things he says that don't make any sense that we just glance over them. We've become accommodated to them, but they're hard signs of neurological decline. People that aren't suffering dementia don't make these kinds of linguistic errors.